When so many in the media are reporting the same stories, promulgating the same narratives, relying on the same sources, even using the same phrases. I mean, think of it. There are literally thousands of legitimate news stories that could be reported in a given day and an infinite number of ways to report them. When everybody's on the same page, it might be the result of an organized campaign.
We are concerned about the troubling trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control
exactly what people think.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
At News Channel 3, our responsibility is to report and pursue the truth.
We understand truth is neither politically left nor right.
Our commitment to factual reporting is the foundation of our credibility now more than ever.
But we are human, and sometimes our reporting might fall short.
If you believe our coverage is unfair, please reach out through our website.
We value your comments and we will respond.
We work very hard to seek the truth and strive to be fair, balanced, and factual.
We consider it our honor, privilege to responsibly deliver the news every day.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
The El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about troubling trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories without true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Avian influenza is still on the rise here in the United States. Arkansas officials are keeping an eye on bird flu cases across the state. 5 News reporter Parker Abels met with some experts to discuss why it's spreading and what bird owners can do to prevent it from reaching their birds. Well, everybody knows that the bird is a weather bird.
Whether to vaccinate the flocks in this country and deal with the political repercussions of that from the GOP base, or deal with rising egg prices and maybe eggs coming in from Mexico.
The disease has been found in 159 flocks, 108 of which have been commercial flocks, and then 51 backyard hobby type flocks, and then 51 backyard hobby type flocks.
And tonight there's a new approach to fight the bird flu, and it's being considered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's issued a conditional license to a company called Zoetis to produce a vaccine for chickens.
So the U.S. Department of Agriculture has issued conditional approval for a bird flu vaccine for use in chickens.
The Agriculture Department has issued a conditional license to
to a company to produce a bird flu vaccine for chickens.
The Agriculture Department has issued a conditional license to a company to produce a bird flu vaccine for chickens.
The Agriculture Department has issued a conditional license to a company to produce a vaccine for chickens.
Now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine to be used on chickens.
The Department of Agriculture issued a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine. It would be used in chickens amid an outbreaking ravaging poultry flocks, contributing to the rising price of eggs.
Meantime, the U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine. It would be used in chickens amid an outbreak hitting poultry flocks, contributing to the rising price of eggs.
The vaccine has just been approved to treat chickens ravaged by the bird flu outbreak, but it's only conditional. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, it would be used in chickens amid this outbreak that is really just harming our industry here and contributing to the rising prices of eggs.
If you've been to a supermarket in the last few weeks, you've noticed that not only are eggs increasingly expensive, they're also becoming harder and harder to find.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture issues a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine that will be used in chickens amid an outbreak ravaging poultry flocks, contributing to the rising price of eggs. Ivan Rodriguez breaks down this vaccine and what it could mean for you and the agriculture industry.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine. It would be used in chickens amid an outbreak ravaging poultry flocks, contributing to the rising price of eggs. Ivan Rodriguez breaks down what this vaccine could mean for consumers and the agriculture industry.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine. It would be used in chickens amid an outbreak that is ravaging poultry flocks, contributing to the rising price of eggs. Ivan Rodriguez breaks down what this vaccine could mean for consumers and the agriculture industry.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine. It would be used in chickens amid an outbreak ravaging poultry flocks, contributing to the rising price of eggs. Ivan Rodriguez breaks down what this vaccine could mean for consumers and the agriculture industry.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture issuing a conditional license for an avian flu vaccine.
It would be used in chickens to protect against the current outbreak that's affecting poultry, and that in turn has driven up the price of eggs.
Ivan Rodriguez breaks down what this vaccine could mean for consumers and the agriculture industry.
Dr. Jonathan Reiner with George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences says the U.S. has a decision to make.
Whether to vaccinate the flocks in this country, and deal with the political repercussions of that from the GOP base, or deal with rising egg prices and maybe eggs coming in from Mexico.
According to the USDA, avian flu has been confirmed in 146 flocks in the past month, affecting more than 20 million birds. 34 million egg-laying hens have been culled since December.
While other countries already vaccinate chickens against bird flu, the U.S. approach has long been focused on eradicating the virus, mainly through culling flocks of birds when a case is identified.
While some other countries already vaccinate chickens against bird flu, the U.S. is focused on eradicating the virus by culling flocks of birds when a case is identified.
Other nations already vaccinate their birds against the virus, but the United States has tried to eradicate avian flu instead. Now, so far, more than 150 million birds have been culled since the latest outbreak in 2022.
A shift in strategy for the U.S., which is currently choosing to isolate and eradicate affected flocks.
A company spokesman says its scientists began updating its existing avian flu vaccine years ago.
The vaccine maker is Zoetis. A company spokesperson says its scientists began updating its existing avian flu vaccine several years ago.
More than 150 million birds that were infected or exposed have been killed.
More than 150 million birds have been killed since 2022, and we've seen it lead to high egg prices around the country.
They will present the president with a plan to combat avian flu that involves medication that would avoid killing chickens.
Over the last 30 days, 151 flocks have been confirmed to have avian flu, affecting more than 23 million birds, according to the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, part of the USDA.
More than 150 million birds that were infected or exposed have been killed.
The vaccine from manufacturer Zoetis is one of multiple targeting bird flu in poultry.
In the U.S., more than 162 million birds have been affected by avian influenza in the past 2 years.
Experts say the U.S. has a decision to make.
Not all those birds necessarily tested positive for avian flu, but were members of a flock where a case was confirmed.
The virus is also spreading in dairy cows,
Zoetis, the manufacturer behind the vaccine, says its scientists began updating its existing avian flu vaccine in 2022.
Trump administration officials are expected to present the president with a plan to combat the bird flu sometime next week. The virus continues to spread among wild birds and commercial flocks. Now, as we know, that has sent egg prices soaring, but the new plan could include the possibility of a push to vaccinate birds against the virus. Poultry in the U.S. are vaccinated for several diseases already, including salmonella and bronchitis. Some vaccines are given through the bird's water supply. Others are sprayed in the air or given as injections. Some vaccines are given through the bird's water supply. Others are sprayed in the air or given as injections. Now, as we know, that has sent egg prices soaring.
But consumers are feeling the pressure at the grocery store as bird flu has caused egg prices to skyrocket.
But the price of eggs has jumped more than 15% in the past month alone after this bird flu outbreak just dramatically lowered supplies.
Each week, they seem to go even higher.
We know that egg prices are still sky high.
Leading the rise in grocery prices are eggs.
Those soaring egg prices. Well, if you've been paying more for eggs recently, you have the bird flu to thank for the price increase, according to egg producers.
But scientists, they are fighting back.
More than 150 million birds that were infected or exposed have been killed. And that is why right now egg prices are very high at grocery stores. The USDA reports an average wholesale egg price has gone up 40 cents in the last week. That's up to $7.74 for an egg. $7.74. And
consumers are feeling it out there. Health officials are warning bird flu continues to spread across the country, impacting dozens of farms and roughly 20 million poultry and birds in just the last 30 days. In a new report over the weekend, the USDA saying the national wholesale average price for eggs increased 40 cents over the last week to $7.74 per dozen.
Now to the spread of bird flu, which is causing egg prices to soar. Dozen eggs now 50% more expensive than a year ago, and there appears to be no relief in sight.
You're not going to expect any relief anytime soon. So earlier this year, the USDA predicted that egg prices would jump 20% this year. Yeah, looks like it.
Experts say there's little chance that we're going to see lower costs coming anytime soon. Experts say prices are expected to increase by up to 20% in the coming months.
As we reported last week, Zoetis has received a conditional license to produce an avian flu vaccine to be used on chickens. While other countries already vaccinate chickens against avian flu, the U.S. approach has long focused on eradicating the virus, mainly through culling. But it may not be a quick process getting a vaccine in place.
Last week, the U.S. reported its first severe case of bird flu found in a patient in Louisiana.
Honor code was never going to work, that when vaccinated and unvaccinated people are mixing, unless there is proof of vaccination, everybody should still be wearing masks. And so that when vaccinated and unvaccinated people are mixing, unless there is proof of vaccination, everybody should still be wearing masks.
And then 51 backyard hobby type flocks.
So I actually support what the CDC is now doing, which is going back to this indoor mask requirement, because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated, that they have been walking around without masks. And in fact, that's what led to the surge that we're seeing. But to answer your question about what's happening now with vaccine approval, I mean, I think it's good that the FDA is making sure that we follow the right process. We don't want for anything to be rushed. But that said, whatever red tape and bureaucracy there is, we really should be cutting out, because full approval, I mean, at this point, hundreds of millions of people around the world have received these life-saving vaccines. We know, and it's been proven how safe and effective they are. So I'm not entirely sure what we're waiting for. I do know that having full approval will really pave the way for a lot more employers and schools and other institutions to implement vaccine mandates, which I strongly believe is what we need at this point. So I very much support what the Biden administration is doing with the federal government, with federal employees, saying that at this point we are in the middle of a national and international public health emergency. You have a right to stay unvaccinated if you want to, but if you want to be in public spaces, if you want to now be coming to work and be around other individuals, you don't have a right to infect others with a potentially deadly disease. So the idea of either testing or proving that you're vaccinated, I think is exactly the right one, and FDA approval in the near future, I hope will be coming as well.
So, bird flu. Is this report out of Louisiana worrisome? And if so, why?
Well, it's one more sign that the drumbeat of bird flu coming closer to humans is becoming a major threat. So we've already seen this year that there have been a number of mammalian species close to humans that now have bird flu outbreaks. We have outbreaks in poultry in all 50 states. 16 states have outbreaks in cattle. In California, in the last 30 days, there have been more than 300 herds that tested positive. And now we have 66 cases of bird flu in humans. And this is almost certainly a significant undercount because we have not been doing nearly enough testing, so we really don't know the extent of bird flu that's out there in humans. But this particular case, it's someone who is severely ill, but not only that, researchers have isolated the virus in this individual who is sick in Louisiana, and they found that this particular strain of the virus appears to have acquired mutations that make it more likely to bind to airway receptors. Bird flu has been around for a long time.
About 30 years.
Yeah, exactly, but it hasn't been a major issue in humans because while it spreads among birds, it hasn't really spread among mammals. But now there is this mutation, and there's another concern now major too, which is that we're in flu season. And it's possible that a single person could have bird flu and seasonal flu at the same time.
Something called reassortment.
That's right. But now there is this mutation, and there's another concern now major too, which is that we're in flu season. And it's possible that a single person could have bird flu and seasonal flu at the same time.
Something called reassortment.
That's right.
If we can bring energy down, everything's coming down. You know, the eggs are coming down and the bacon's coming down. Everything is coming down. You know, the eggs are coming down and the bacon's coming down. Everything is coming down.
Trump this week vowing to bring down consumer prices, including the cost of eggs.
While this current strain of the avian flu has been top of mind for the past few months, the Fresno County Farm Bureau says it's actually been around for 3 years, meaning vaccines have been in development for longer than we might think.
The USDA has now granted conditional approval for the company Zoetis to vaccinate hens against the H5N2 virus. Fresno County Farm Bureau CEO Ryan Jacobson says commercial egg producers shouldn't see the vaccine appear overnight, but he's hopeful the new Ag Secretary will help move the project along as the price of eggs continue to skyrocket.
One person has died from the disease. Over the weekend, Ohio's health department reported the 4th case of a person being hospitalized for bird flu.
Moderna is working on a vaccine against the bird flu. This after the CDC reported today a 4th human case of the bird flu in Colorado. The Department of Health and Human Services announced the government is giving the drug maker $176 million to develop the vaccine. It comes amid the ongoing bird flu outbreak in dairy cows across the country. There is no evidence yet of bird flu spreading easily from person to person. The vaccine is not expected to be available until next year.
The federal government has bought 500,000 doses of bird flu vaccine to make sure Canada is ready for any potential threat that the virus may pose. Canada reported its first domestically acquired human case of avian influenza in November.
Federal health officials are preparing 2 possible bird flu vaccines that can be distributed quickly if the virus does spread to humans. The bird flu has been spreading right now, despite the name, among dairy cattle, infecting at least 36 herds in 9 states are humans next? Joining us, just that one dairy farmer got the bird flu, but the fact that he got it from presumably the cows, that's kind of a big deal for those who work in public health.
That's correct. And I think that we do have to focus an effort on our dairy farmers to make sure that they're protected.
Now we're taking a look at Moderna, and weak guidance here, too. A down arrow from Moderna this morning. Let's get to Jenny Horn, who has some of the details. Jenny.
I will say, Nicole, that to maybe soften the blow, we did already get a lot of these numbers, and its guidance was sort of pre-announced mid-January, so there was few surprises left, but still showing signs of a company that is weakening. I mean, we saw fourth quarter revenue of $1 billion. That actually did top forecasts. Well, the company did lose $2.91 a share versus the $2.68 per share loss Street had been expecting. So losses steepening and missing the mark. That when, of course, we first saw these numbers, investors panicked. We saw the stock fall as much as 17% in the session following that announcement. But their CFO did say in mid-January they think they can still break even by 2028 and they won't need to raise new capital to go there. So right now, I think the concern is other products. Are they able to pick up the slack? So right now, I think the concern is other products. Are they able to pick up the slack?
With bird flu spreading rapidly in the United States over the past few months, the federal government has now awarded more than $500 million to pharmaceutical company Moderna. The $590 million will go towards speeding up the development of its bird flu vaccine. With bird flu spreading rapidly in the United States over the past few months, the federal government has now awarded more than $500 million to pharmaceutical company Moderna. The $590 million will go towards speeding up the development of its bird flu vaccine.
Health experts recommend that once the bird flu vaccine becomes publicly available, you should get it.
Recommending Americans to get a bird flu vaccine once it's completed. The CDC says the federal government is working on that vaccine now. Those at highest risk for bird flu include poultry workers and dairy and cattle farmers.
There are new concerns tonight as bird flu continues to spread. A week ago, California declared a state of emergency after a mass infection of dairy cattle there. In Washington state, where cases have been on the rise, more than half of the big cats at one wildlife sanctuary died after contracting the virus. Randy, I understand there's also concern now about house cats. What are you learning?
Yeah, Jim, there's not only the big cats who are at risk, but now it seems that the house cats are at risk as well. This is after a house cat in Oregon died after eating a pet product that was later found to be infected with or tested positive for bird flu.
Well, the federal government is taking action to reduce the spread of bird flu. The virus was first detected in dairy cattle in Texas and can spread through poultry flocks and wild birds. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture says it will work to prevent the spread of the virus by restricting the movement of cattle between states.
The real worry is that it will jump to the human lungs, where when that has happened in other parts of the world for brief outbreaks, the mortality rate's been 25%, about 10 times worse than COVID. The mortality rate's been 25%, about 10 times worse than COVID.
Chinese and global health authorities are watching a new strain of bird flu very closely indeed. It's called H7N9. And previously it wasn't believed to be dangerous to humans, but 9 people have contracted the illness in different parts of China, and 3 have died. And authorities in China are at pains to say they're on top of this potential outbreak.
For the third time this month, China is blaming a death on bird flu. Chinese state media reports a 16-year-old boy died of the H5N1 strain of the virus. Authorities are stepping up precautions amid fears that it can spread more quickly in cold weather and as more than 180 million people travel ahead of China's Lunar New Year holiday. The festivities often include feasts with poultry.
A lot of folks have been worried about bird flu. Also want to show you some video there on your screen as well. You may be thinking about bird flu, egg prices, and how it all goes together. We've seen a recent increase in numbers over the last few months, raising concerns for both safety and much more. The virus is now impacting dairy cows and the people who care for them as well. Virus is now impacting dairy cows and the people who care for them as well.
Yeah, so what we've seen, Christina, is a continued spread across states and spread across species. These will contact with backyard chickens. These will contact with backyard chickens. And the way they got infected was likely, although not confirmed with the Wyoming case, or confirmed with the Louisiana case, with a different type and likely spread by wild birds flying over, because it is a pandemic in wild birds, waterfowl right now.
About 150 million birds have died in the United States due to bird flu in the past 3 years. That's according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But this month, the USDA has granted a conditional license to Zoetis for its avian influenza vaccine. Dr. Crystal Heath from Our Honor says other countries like France, China, Egypt, and Mexico have already vaccinated their birds for avian influenza. We may lose export markets because many countries don't accept imports from those currently vaccinating. Plus, a mutating virus means a vaccine might not work for long.
So we continually have to change the vaccine and adapt as the virus continues to mutate, which highlights we're kind of in this ever-escalating arms race against these pathogens.
I'm obviously most worried about bird flu. Right now, it takes 5 amino acid change for it to be effectively infecting humans. That's a pretty heavy species barrier, but this virus is already now in 26 mammal species, as you saw most recently, cattle. But in the laboratory, I could make it highly infectious for humans in months.